Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. We are already a quarter of the way through 2022, and I wanted to share the best books that I've read so far this year, both fiction and nonfiction, although I've only got one fiction book on this list. And so I'll share all these books with you, and maybe you can add a couple to your list if they catch your interest. So let's get straight into this video and I'll share the 7 books that I really love so far this year. Oh, yes. And I forgot to mention, so far this year, I've read 16 books. It's the beginning of April. So, yeah, 7 books. It's almost half of the books that I've read so far are pretty good. So, here is the first one here. Let's just start out with the fiction book. So, right here is Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. And the reason why I picked up this book was because I just joined or started a fiction book club just with a couple of my coworkers. And this book right here won the Booker Prize in 2020. And the theme that we have going on with this book club is we're going to try to pick prize winners or like best sellers that have got a lot of attention and have rated very well amongst literature readers. So I haven't been too much of a literature fan, but I want to try something a little bit new and get some more mixture into my reading because mostly I read nonfiction, professional development, self-help, business types of books. So Shuggie Bain was definitely a great one to add to my list. The story is quite depressing, but you can learn quite a lot from fiction as well. And I would have to say that I learned a lot from Shuggie. I learned a lot about his life. A boy like 10 years old, basically the story starts out as a 5-year-old, but ends up as like a 15-year-old, I think. So it's over a 10-year period of time in 1980s, early 90s in Glasgow. So yeah, his mother is like an alcoholic and severe alcoholic, and he has to deal with basically he's a child, yet he has to kind of almost parent his mom. And it just goes through the story of her alcoholism and how he deals with that. So it's a pretty serious story, but very well written and 400 some odd pages, yet flies by. I read it in about 3 weeks. So I read it, fairly quickly. So yeah, check out that book if you like fiction and the story kind of interests you. All right, and the second book here is The Great Mental Models. I don't know if you can see it there. It's a bit dark in this room right now because it's in the middle of the night. Not too late, but yeah. The Great Mental Models by Farnham Street, Shane Parrish. And basically, this thing has 9 mental models that we can use to basically improve our thinking, to improve the process of thinking. It's actually a pretty straightforward book. If you are a fan of Shane Parrish, Farnham Street, then I highly recommend reading this book. The one that sticks out in my mind is the first principle thinking, which is basically breaking everything down into the simplest form and then building up from there. So yeah, it's got stuff like that in there that will help you to think through the work that you do, think through the thinking that you do, kind of like a metacognition type style of way of thinking and doing things in some of the models. So it's highly recommended. So please do check this thing out. And we'll go on to the third book. All right, book number 3 is Write Useful Books, A Modern Approach to Designing and Refining Recommendable Nonfiction by Rob Fitzpatrick. And this one I really loved. I'm in the process of writing 2 books right now. One of them is I'm co-authoring. It's basically about teaching agile or agile teaching. And so it's in the education field, which I've been involved in for the past 11 years. And then the other book that I'm writing is it's about learning, the process of learning and how we can use the learning strategies to improve our life, learning and reading strategies. So the Rob Fitzpatrick book is very straightforward. It's like I've read several other books about writing and publishing, self-publishing books, and some of them were quite wordy, and others were very general. This one is very straightforward, precise, and it has like a step-to-step guide with enough information in there. He teaches you basically how he writes his own books. He's got like several books out, I think 3 or 4 books. And I'm assuming that his other books kind of follow some of the same processes. So those strategies are easily implementable if you're planning on writing your own nonfiction book. One of the biggest tips that I got from it, which I never really thought about, is making your book like public before it's even published. What that means is like taking snippets of your book or like sections of your books, and then like putting that out to maybe your followers on social media or your newsletter or something like that, and letting people read through those and comment on those. Also, another one is like the beta reading process, which he really breaks that down and makes it clear for you. Basically, you're not just going to have one group of beta readers, but he suggests to have like 3 or 4 rounds of beta readers of like 20 people each. So it's like he really like, he gives you the tips that will help you to narrow your book's aim so that it will help readers very specifically. So I love it. It's practical, and I'm going to implement it when writing my 2 books that I'm writing right now. And before we go on to the 4th book, I just want to mention that these all these 7 books that I'm mentioning in this video right now are not necessarily going to be going on my top books at the end of the year. I'm just breaking down the ones that I have read so far out of the 16 and choosing the ones that I feel were very beneficial for me. Now, of course, later in the year, I may read a book on the same topic that is better than some of the books that I mentioned in this video here today. So yeah, this list is not a final list for the year. It's just a quarterly list, and it may change in the future with some of the books that I end up putting on my best books list. And here's the 4th book, Marketing Rebellion, The Most Human Company Wins by Mark Schaefer. He's the author of The Cumulative Advantage, which was on my top list last year. And, he's definitely one of my favorite authors so far that I've read. But I don't pick this book as my favorite book so far in 2022 because he's my favorite author. I pick it because it's genuinely good. So yeah, I mean, it's a marketing book, but it's not like, his writing is not like other marketers who write, like, for example, Gary Vee or who's another, Seth Godin. Like, his writing style is different. The way that he talks about marketing is different. And I really like that difference. I've read Gary Vee before. I've read Seth Godin, and I do like their books, but I would have to say that Mark Schaefer has a more like storytelling type style of writing. And the writing is, I would have to just say, more like honest and more genuine and more human. Hence the title or the subtitle of this book, The Most Human Company Wins, or The Most Human Person Wins. Because, people have their personal brands. And so it's not just about companies, I would have to say, for this book. It's also about like what you do personally, like especially for a lot of people who post on social media or write in blogs or make their YouTube videos. It's like the people who connect most with their audience and basically create a community are the ones that are really going to stand out and build their influence and maybe even sell the most products or make the most loyal customers who will keep on coming back for more. It talks a lot about loyalty in the book as well. So it's one of those books that I think I could return to. And so this book may very well go on my top books list of 2022. Yet I still don't know because I haven't read any other marketing books this year, which I probably will. And who knows, the other book may be better or it may not be, or maybe they will equally be great. So I do recommend reading it if you are marketing yourself or in the marketing agency, maybe for a company, and you just want to be able to get some more insights about how to really be personable and how to stand out and how to be human, basically. So it's really a great book. And I have not read any other book quite like this one. Grandpa's Fortune Fables, Fun Stories to Teach Kids About Money by Will Rainey. And I made a video about this one recently. I'll go ahead and link it to the top of this video here. You can check that one out. And also, I just got done recording a podcast episode with the author, which I haven't yet released, but when I do, keep an eye out for it. This book is great for parents who want to buy a gift for their kid, maybe like my daughter. She's 5 years old, so she's not quite reading fluently yet. So my daughter and I read this book, and it really teaches you a lot about money, teaches your kids about money. And this type of stuff is not really taught in schools. It talks about entrepreneurship. So what kids can do to be little entrepreneurs. It talks about how to save your money well. Basically you want like 10% of your whatever pocket money that you get or something like that, and how to reinvest that money in your entrepreneurship or in investing in like companies or stocks or setting up a investing account. So it talks about all those things and it does it in a really fun way. I really love the book. And it's one of those books that I'm going to come back to with my daughter later as she starts to read a little bit better. And we're going to talk about the stories. We're going to talk about the concepts. And I'm going to help her out to invest in stuff or maybe help her to start a little kidpreneur business as she gets older. So I highly recommend that for anyone who has kids. Anyone who has kids. I mean, you could read it yourself if you're an adult, but there may be better books that are for adults, basically. Like, I don't know, maybe the Psychology of Money or something like that, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But still, if you read it as an adult, I think you would still like it. And you may even learn something new from it. So enjoy. All right, book number 6 is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, a memoir by the creator of Nike. So I'm from Portland, Oregon, and Shoe Dog, or sorry, Nike is from Oregon as well. And I really loved all the Oregon references in this book. It's so cool to see my home state in really entwined in this book. Like he mentions it so often, actually. So I recognize all the places in Oregon. And then also Phil Knight traveled to Japan so many times throughout this book as well. And I don't know if you've ever noticed in some of my previous videos, or I could even show you now, like I got a few Japanese things up here, right here. And then there's also one behind the bags here. I've traveled to Japan several times, and I really love all the mentions of that. And just Phil Knight's story about building Nike and how long it really took him, like a decade, I think it was, or more, to really build up the brand that we know today as Nike. Before it was called Nike, it wasn't, before the name came, Nike, it was not called Nike. It was called Blue Ribbon, but it wasn't actually the Nike shoes, the Nike manufacturers or anything like that. So really his story is interesting, and it's very entertaining. It's educative about like how to build a business, the mindset it takes, and how much time and energy it takes from you. But if it is something that you absolutely love, which is what Phil Knight calls in his book, a shoe dog is someone who absolutely loves shoes, then if it's like follows your purpose and follows something that you love, then all the time and energy that you put into it is totally worth it, as is represented in this amazing book. So check that one out if you're interested in the story of Nike. If you don't know much about Nike and you have an inkling of interest, check it out, because I think the story will really encapture your imagination even, and encapture your heart and your soul. So check it out. And the last one that I have on this list of 7 is Your Turn, How to Be an Adult by Julie Lythcott-haims. And I started this one actually in 2021. It took me a while to read because it's quite thick and very inclusive, very detailed. There's a lot of stories in it. And basically it talks about adulting, how to, hence the title, be an adult, because a lot of us are really not taught how to be an adult, like especially if we have parents that don't really teach us. And so it does have a lot of general advice, but it also has a lot of specific advice, and it gets very not necessarily controversial, although it could be controversial for some people. But a lot of the examples come from like LGBT. But I personally like this aspect because not just LGBT, but all several races used as an example. The author interviews people, just average people. And so a lot of the chapters have these interviews, and it just talks about the lifestyle and how these people overcame their struggles. And so the reason why I would say it's controversial is because maybe some people disagree with that person's lifestyle. But Julie, she explains it in the back of the book that, one of the reasons why she included so many, like a wide variety of people from all different backgrounds, is because that is a representation of this world. We live in a world with people of all sorts of religions and genders and sexual orientations. I mean, we as people have to understand that everyone has their own choice in the way that they live. So, and plus, the readers of the book can connect with some of those stories in there directly, whereas other stories, they may not relate directly. So I think it's a really cool thing that she includes all these different stories. And if some of the stories don't resonate with you, I think it's okay to skim or even skip some of the sections. It's even okay to skip some of the chapters too, because if you have already been educated on money, then why read the chapter on money, right? I mean, maybe you could skim through it and see if there's any takeaways that you might want to get. But yeah, so I would I put this on my list because it's really impactful because there's such a wide range of ideas in this book. So yeah, it's hard to explain the book because it's got so much in it. And that's one of the reasons why it took me such a long time. But I have a big respect for the author and just how much work and energy and love and care she put into writing her book. So definitely check out these books. And yeah, I hope that you found some recommendations here that you really like. All right, so here we go. We got the list of 7 books that I really like so far in 2022. I hope that some of these books catch your interest and add to your knowledge pile, add to your reading list. The ones that I feel have been very impactful for me may be impactful for you. And it's a wide range of books too. Like we've got books about money in there. We've got books, memoir, we've got fiction, we've got marketing, and we've got stuff about learning and thinking. So it is definitely a wide range of books. So hopefully you found something that you love, and definitely check out some of the other videos that I've got on this channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.